The words cut through the dinner table chatter like a knife through silence. "You don't belong here." My sister's voice was cold, calculated, deliberate. Everyone froze. Forks mid-air, glasses halfway to lips. And in that moment, sitting at our parents' dining table where we'd shared countless meals, I realized that the sister I thought I knew had become a stranger. What I didn't know then was that her cruelty would cost her everything she took for granted. Before we go further into this story, I want to say that if you enjoy hearing about real family drama and how people handle betrayal, you might want to stick around for more stories like this one. Let me take you back to the beginning because this story doesn't start with that dinner. It starts 32 years ago when I was born, the youngest of two daughters to parents who worked themselves to exhaustion to give us everything they never had. My father was a contractor, my mother a school teacher. They weren't wealthy, but they were smart with money. They saved, they invested, they planned. And most importantly, they believed in fairness. "What we build for both of you equally," Dad would always say, his weathered hands wrapped around his coffee mug at the breakfast table. My sister Rachel was 5 years older than me. Growing up, she was my hero. She taught me how to ride a bike, how to braid my hair, how to stand up to the mean girls at school. We shared secrets, inside jokes, late-night conversations about our dreams. She wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a veterinarian. We promised we'd always have each other's backs. But something shifted when we became adults. Maybe it started when she married Marcus, a man whose smile never quite reached his eyes. Or maybe it was earlier when she graduated law school and suddenly our parents' modest lifestyle seemed beneath her. The designer bags appeared. The luxury car. The constant comments about upgrading and moving up in the world. I took a different path. I did become a veterinarian, but I chose to work at a non-profit animal shelter rather than a high-end clinic. I drove a 10-year-old sedan. I lived in a small apartment, and I was happy. Genuinely happy. Our parents were proud of both of us, in different ways. They never compared us, never played favorites. When Dad's construction business took off in his later years, and they finally had real money, they wanted to share it with both their daughters equally. That's when they bought the investment property. It was a beautiful 4-bedroom house in an up-and-coming neighborhood. Dad saw it as a fixer-upper with potential, bought it at a foreclosure auction, and spent 6 months renovating it himself. "This will be part of your inheritance," he told us one Sunday afternoon. "It's in both your names. When we're gone, you'll own it together, 50-50. You can rent it out, sell it, whatever you both decide. But it's for both of you." The house was titled to Mom and Dad, but their will clearly stated that Rachel and I would inherit it jointly. They wanted us to have something substantial, something that would provide security. The house was worth about $400,000 after the renovations. But here's what I didn't know. While Dad was putting the finishing touches on that house, Rachel was whispering in Mom's ear. It started subtly. Family dinners where Rachel would casually mention how hard it was for her and Marcus to find the right house in the right neighborhood, how they needed more space, how property values were skyrocketing and they were missing opportunities. Then came the comments about me. Not direct, never direct. Just little observations dropped like poison into a well. "It's so sweet that she's happy with her simple life. Not everyone needs luxury, you know. Some people are just built differently. I worry she doesn't think about her future, about building wealth." I didn't hear most of these comments firsthand. I was busy working 60-hour weeks at the shelter, treating abused animals, performing surgeries, fighting for funding. I'd show up to family dinners tired but content, completely oblivious to the narrative Rachel was crafting. The real betrayal started 18 months before that fateful dinner. Mom got sick. Breast cancer. Aggressive. The treatments were brutal, and Dad was devastated, barely holding himself together. Rachel swept in like a hurricane of competence. She organized the medical appointments, talked to the doctors, managed the insurance paperwork. She was there constantly, always present, always helpful. I came when I could. Between work emergencies and surgeries, I'd drive the 2 hours to their house, spend evenings holding Mom's hand, cooking meals, cleaning. But Rachel was there more. That's just a fact. She had more flexibility in her schedule, and I'll give her credit. She showed up. What I didn't realize was that she was also isolating them, subtly redirecting conversations when I called. "Oh, they're resting. I'll have them call you back." taking over their finances to reduce their stress, becoming the single point of contact for everything. And then came the paperwork. One afternoon, while Mom was weak from chemo, Rachel brought documents to the house. Just some medical directive updates, she said, making sure everything is in order in case, well, you know. But buried in those documents was something else. A quitclaim deed. A form that would transfer the investment property entirely into Rachel's name. She told our parents it was to simplify estate management and reduce tax burden. She used legal jargon, banking on their exhaustion and confusion. Dad, who could barely think straight from worry and grief, signed it. Mom, weak and trusting her eldest daughter, signed it too. The house that was meant for both of us suddenly belonged only to Rachel. I found out by accident, 6 months after Mom went into remission. I was updating my own estate planning, and my attorney asked about the investment property. You'll want to make sure you have documentation since you're a co-owner. I don't have any documentation yet, I said. It's still in my parents' names. The attorney offered to check the county records. The color drained from my face when he showed me the transfer. The house had been deeded to Rachel. Only Rachel. My hands shook as I drove to my parents' house that evening. Dad answered the door, looking healthier than he had in months. Mom was in the kitchen, hair starting to grow back, smile genuine. Did you know the investment property was transferred to Rachel? I asked, my voice barely steady. The confusion on their faces was real, genuine. Dad's hand went to his forehead. What? No, that's not. We signed some medical papers, but… Mom's face went pale. She said it was just in case something happened. To make things easier, we pulled out their copies of the documents. There it was, on page 6 of 8, in small print among the medical directives, the quitclaim deed. They'd signed away the house without even realizing what they were doing. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. I trusted her. Why would she? I called Rachel immediately. She didn't answer. I called again. And again. Finally a text. I don't appreciate being harassed. The house is legally mine. Mom and Dad signed the papers. If you have a problem, talk to a lawyer. The coldness of that message was like a slap. This wasn't my sister. This was a stranger wearing my sister's face. I did talk to a lawyer. 3 of them, actually. They all said the same thing. It would be an uphill battle. The documents were legal. Our parents had signed them. We could argue undue influence, but it would be expensive, time-consuming, and emotionally devastating. And the burden of proof would be on us. Rachel moved into the house 2 months later. She and Marcus, living in the property that was supposed to be mine too, that Dad had built with his own hands for both his daughters. I felt betrayed, gutted. But more than that, I felt sad. I'd lost more than a house. I'd lost my sister. Our parents were heartbroken. Dad especially. He'd built that house thinking he was securing both his daughters' futures. Instead, he'd watched one daughter steal from the other, and there was nothing he could legally do about it. Family dinners became tense, then rare, then practically non-existent. Rachel would come by occasionally, acting as if nothing had happened, talking about her renovations to her house, her plans for her investment, which brings us to that dinner 6 months ago. Mom had asked us both to come. It was her birthday, and despite everything, she wanted her daughters together. Just this once, she pleaded with me. Please, for me. I went. For Mom. Only for Mom. Rachel was already there when I arrived, glass of wine in hand, looking perfectly polished in designer clothes probably worth more than I made in a month. She barely acknowledged me, just a curt nod before returning to her conversation with Marcus about their upcoming vacation to the Maldives. Dinner was awkward, painfully so. I helped Mom in the kitchen while Rachel held court in the dining room. Dad looked uncomfortable, caught between wanting peace and being unable to forget what had happened. We sat down to eat. Mom tried to keep conversation light. Weather, gardening, anything neutral. But Rachel couldn't help herself. So, she said, cutting into her steak, Marcus and I are thinking of buying another property, an actual vacation home. The rental income from the house has been incredible. Best investment we ever made. The house. She meant the house. The one that was supposed to be ours. I kept my mouth shut. For Mom's sake, but Rachel wasn't done. You know, it's really about being smart with opportunities. Some people see potential and seize it. Others just… She waved her fork vaguely in my direction. Stay comfortable where they are. Rachel, Dad said quietly. A warning. She ignored him. The wine had loosened her tongue, or maybe she'd just been waiting for this moment. I mean, we all make choices, right? I chose to build wealth, to think strategically, to secure my future. That's not wrong. That's just being smart. My fork felt heavy in my hand. Rachel, can we not? What? I'm just stating facts. You chose to work at a shelter for barely any money, living in that tiny apartment, driving that embarrassment of a car. These are your choices. Rachel, that's enough, Mom said, her voice shaking. But Rachel was on a roll now, years of superiority finally spilling out uncensored. I'm just saying, if you had been more present, more involved with Mom and Dad's affairs, maybe things would be different. But you were always so busy with your little rescue animals, your little life, that you didn't bother to step up when it mattered. The injustice of that statement took my breath away. I'd been there, every moment I could manage. But she'd made sure to be there more, to position herself as the dependable daughter while poisoning the well against me. You manipulated them, I said quietly. You knew exactly what you were doing with those documents? Rachel's eyes went cold. I did what was necessary to protect my interests. If you were too naive to understand how the world works, that's not my fault. They trusted you. And they signed legal documents. She took a sip of wine. Your problem is you've always been too soft, too emotional. You can't think strategically to save your life. The table was silent. Mom had tears in her eyes. Dad's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. And then Rachel said it. The words that would change everything. Honestly, I don't even know why you're here. You don't belong in this family anymore. You're not on our level. You never have been. So maybe stop pretending and accept that some people are just meant to be more successful than others. She smiled as she said it. Actually smiled. I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. You're right, Rachel. I'm not on your level. I actually have ethics. Enjoy your dinner. I kissed Mom's cheek, squeezed Dad's shoulder, and left. I heard Mom crying as I closed the door. I drove home in shock, then anger, then determination. Rachel thought she was smart, strategic, always 3 steps ahead. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd assumed I would just roll over and accept her betrayal, that I'd be too soft, too emotional to fight back. She forgot that being kind doesn't mean being weak. I couldn't legally fight her for the house. Not practically. But I could do something else, something she'd never see coming. See, Rachel had always looked down on my simple life, my little job. What she didn't know was that our parents, heartbroken by what she'd done, had been quietly changing their will. They called me a week after that disastrous dinner. We need to talk about our estate, Dad said. His voice was heavy with resignation and disappointment. We can't undo what happened with the investment property. The law is the law. But we can make sure our primary assets are distributed fairly. Their primary asset was their own home, worth about $500,000. And they had savings, investments, Dad's business, assets worth another $300,000 combined. The new will was clear. I would inherit the house and 75% of their remaining assets. Rachel would receive 25%. And there was a clause, carefully worded by their attorney. This distribution reflects our desire to correct an imbalance created when our eldest daughter received, through means that violated the spirit of our wishes, property that was intended for both our children. But here's where it gets interesting, and where my revenge, if you can call it that, truly took shape. I didn't just accept their decision and wait. I started paying attention, really paying attention. Remember how Rachel bragged about rental income from the house? Turns out she'd converted it to a rental property and was making about $3,000 a month. Good money. What she wasn't doing was paying taxes on it properly, or pulling the right permits for some of the modifications Marcus had made, or following landlord-tenant laws. I didn't have to dig hard. I just had to look and document. A concerned citizen reporting code violations, anonymous tips about unpermitted work, a tenant who called me, I may have found them through a mutual friend, complaining about harassment and illegal security deposit deductions. Suddenly, Rachel and Marcus were dealing with inspections, fines, an audit. Their tenants sued them for illegal eviction practices. The legal fees piled up, but the real turning point came from somewhere unexpected. Mom's cancer returned. This time, it was aggressive. Stage 4. The prognosis wasn't good. And this time, Rachel wasn't so eager to be the devoted daughter. She had her rental property drama to deal with, her legal issues, her stress. I took a leave of absence from work. I moved into my parents' guest room. I was there for every appointment, every treatment, every hard night. Not because I wanted something from them, not to prove a point, but because they were my parents, and I loved them. Dad and I would sit together in hospital waiting rooms, his hand gripping mine. "I'm so sorry," he'd say sometimes. "I'm sorry we let her do this to you." "You didn't let her do anything," I'd tell him. "She made her choices." "We all did." Mom lasted 8 more months. Near the end, she asked to see both of us. Rachel came looking uncomfortable, staying for 30 minutes before claiming she had a work obligation. I stayed. I held Mom's hand as she took her last breath. Dad on one side, me on the other. Rachel was on her way back from the parking garage. The funeral was 3 weeks ago. Rachel cried beautifully, made a touching speech about how much Mom meant to her. Then she cornered me afterward. "We need to talk about Dad's living situation," she said. "That house is too big for him alone. He should sell, downsize. And obviously we'll split everything 50-50. The audacity was breathtaking. "Actually," I said quietly, "that's not your decision to make." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means Dad already knows what he wants to do. And we've already discussed his plans. The reading of the will happened last week." Rachel's face when the attorney read the distribution was something I'll never forget. Shock, disbelief, then rage. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I'll contest this. You manipulated them." The attorney, an older woman with zero tolerance for drama, looked at her over her glasses. "Mrs. Chen, your parents were of completely sound mind. This will was prepared 18 months ago and updated just 3 months ago. There are extensive notes about their reasoning. Unless you want to waste money on a legal battle you'll lose, I suggest you accept their wishes." Rachel turned to Dad, who sat quietly in the corner. "Dad? You're really going to let her take everything?" Dad looked at her with profound sadness. "I'm not letting anyone take anything. Your mother and I made our decision. You received your inheritance early, Rachel. The house was meant for both of you. You made sure it went only to you. We're simply balancing the scales." "I can't believe this. After everything I did for you." "I was there. I helped with Mom." "You were there," Dad agreed. "Until it wasn't convenient anymore. Your sister gave up her job, moved in here, took care of us without asking for anything in return. She did it out of love, not strategy." Rachel left in a fury. She sent me a stream of vicious texts that night. Called me manipulative, calculated, a snake. The irony was completely lost on her. So here I am. I inherited my parents' house, where Dad still lives, and will live as long as he wants. The house where I grew up, where Mom taught me to bake, where Dad showed me how to fix a leaky faucet. It's not about the money. It never was. Rachel has her investment property, her rental income, and 25% of the remaining estate. By pure monetary value, she actually came out slightly ahead. But she lost something money can't buy. Her family. Dad barely speaks to her. She calls occasionally, but he keeps the conversation short. He's not angry anymore, just disappointed. And that's somehow worse. I moved back into my childhood bedroom temporarily, helping Dad adjust to life without Mom. We sit on the back porch in the evenings, drinking tea, talking about Mom, about memories, about everything except Rachel. Sometimes he cries. "I thought I raised her better," he says. "I don't know where we went wrong." "You didn't go wrong," I tell him. "She made her own choices." A month ago, Rachel reached out, not with an apology but with a proposition. She wants to buy out my half of the inheritance. "Let's just put this behind us," her email said. "We can both walk away happy." I haven't responded. Because there is no both. There's no shared anything anymore. She burned that bridge so thoroughly there's not even ash left. People ask me if I feel guilty. If I manipulated the situation the way she accused. The answer is no. I didn't ask my parents to change their will. I didn't campaign for it or badmouth Rachel. I just showed up. I loved them. I was there. If that's manipulation, then I guess I'm guilty. The truth is, the house, my childhood home that I inherited, isn't revenge. The real consequence for Rachel is that she destroyed her family for property and money, and in the end, she's alone with it. She has her investment, her rental income, her percentage of the estate. But she doesn't have her sister. She doesn't have her father's respect. She lost her mother without ever acknowledging what she'd done. I think about that dinner a lot. About her telling me I didn't belong. She was right in a way. I didn't belong in the family she was trying to create. One built on greed, manipulation, and betrayal. But I belonged in the family we actually were. The one Mom and Dad built on love, fairness, and integrity. That's the family I still have. Even though Mom is gone, some people might say I should reach out to Rachel. That family is family, that forgiveness is important. And maybe they're right. Maybe someday I will. But not now. Not when she's still convinced she did nothing wrong. Not when she still sees me as the naive little sister who got lucky. The last time I drove past the investment property, the house Dad built with his own hands, I felt a pang. Not of jealousy or regret, but of sadness. That house was supposed to be a symbol of his love for both of us. Instead, it became a monument to greed. I hope Rachel's rental income is worth it. I hope the house appreciates in value, that her investment pays off spectacularly. I genuinely do, because she traded her family for it, and that's a price I would never pay. I'm back at work now, at the shelter. Same little job, same embarrassing car, same simple life. And I'm still happy. Maybe even happier because I know who I am. I know what I value. And it's not property or status or being strategic. It's showing up for the people you love. It's doing the right thing even when it's hard. It's being someone your parents can trust, even when they're at their most vulnerable. Rachel told me I didn't belong, and she was right. I don't belong in her world of manipulation and greed. I belong exactly where I am, in a life built on love, integrity, and genuine connection. The house she stole? It's just a house. The house I inherited? It's a home. And that's the difference she'll never understand. Dad and I planted a garden in Mom's memory last week. Roses, her favorite. As we worked side by side in the dirt, he said, "Your mother knew. Even at the end, she knew who would really be there." She wasn't surprised by what happened. Just sad. "Me too," I said. "But proud," he added. "She was so proud of you, of who you are." That's the inheritance that matters. Not the house, not the money. The knowledge that I lived up to the values my parents tried to instill. That when it mattered most, I chose love over strategy, family over opportunity, integrity over advantage. Rachel made her choice. She chose the house, the money, the smart play. I chose differently, and I'd make the same choice every single time. If you've stuck with me through this whole story, thank you for listening. Sometimes we just need to tell these stories, to get them out, to make sense of what happened. If you've experienced something similar, just know you're not alone. Family betrayal cuts deep, but integrity heals deeper. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.